Hey everybody, how are you doing today? Dr. Heldman here. Welcome back to Tech Talk Education. In this video I want to keep going down the Linux road. I just want to take a little pause, veer off the highway a little bit, and talk about what to do or how to install multiple desktop environments on your Linux computer, and then how to access each one of those desktop environments so that you can do a stare and compare to see how you like them, which one you prefer. Well, let's get started. It should be super informing and super fun. Well, okay, so I wanted to go about the process of installing Debian 12 while selecting all of the possible desktop environments. And so I went through the process and got it all done. I had a couple of questions about it that I had to go research and figure out. Anyway, I'll put a screenshot up right here to show you what the choices are. If you need to watch a video on how to install Debian 12 in an Oracle VirtualBox VM, I recorded a movie on that a while ago, so you could go back and look at that and get to where we are here. Then when you get to the point when you're installing Debian 12 and you're presented with all of the desktop environment, I'm going to start calling that a DE, desktop environment, Delta Echo. When you're presented with your Delta Echo desktop environment choices, I just selected them all. I also selected web server and SSH server, even though I didn't really need to. I just basically selected everything on the list. And then you are presented with another question quite a bit later on: which display manager do you want to select? And I selected Light DM, and I'll insert a slide right here to show you a screenshot to show you what that looks like. Now what is happening here is I have this installed, it's running. You can see that I called it Debian DEs for multiple DEs. And one of the things that you'll find as you are working with this is that on the upper right hand side of the screen here, you can click this little button right here and you'll wind up having all of the DEs show up. So you can select any one that you want. Now you can see that I currently have Xfce selected, so you just select it. Now there's another thing to notice here is that there are a bunch of defaults here, like gnome, gnome classic on Wayland, gnome classic on Xorg, flashback on Metacity. There are several duplicates here, Plasma Wayland and Plasma X11. Let's get a couple of things out of the way. First of all, Wayland is a protocol, so it is a DE rendering protocol, as is X11. So these are protocols. X11 is quite a bit older. Wayland is newer, and if you're running it inside an Oracle VirtualBox VM, it shows up. You can tell that there's a lot more going on in terms of rendering the display. So by default, if you're running in a VM like this, like Oracle VirtualBox, the idea would be to go as tiny as you can to minimize the amount of CPU processing, graphics processing, and so forth that's going on. But this is a good experiment because it allows you to find out what all of these are. So let's take a look at one. I'll click Xfce first. That is actually a really tiny way to go. It's a good one. This is what it looks like. And so on the left-hand side of the screen here, you can see I have some default icons that show up, like the trash bin, the home folder, file system, and so forth. And then I have an applications drop down, which I like a great deal. I'm very, very comfortable with this. So in all of the Linux cluster server movies that I've made for you, it's always been using Xfce. I find it to be really light, but also very easy to use, and they have thought of everything. They've really accomplished a lot. So I like this DE a lot. Now one of the things that you'll notice here is that when you click to shut down, like here if I go to shut down or log out, you're going to be presented with a screen. This is common in a couple of the DEs, and you can pick one of these tiles. And then I'm going to just cancel this here. The logout is going to be a little bit different depending upon the DE that you select, as is going to be the terminal windows. So there are lots of terminal windows. I don't know if they show up here. Let me go to System. Yeah, so there's a lot of terminals. LX terminal. Here's the console, Q terminal, and so forth, so that you get a lot of terminals that show up by virtue of the fact that you have installed multiple DEs. Now there is something I want to show you about this so you can validate what it is that you're running currently. There is an organization called freedesktop.org, and they have manufactured a bunch of these different desktops for open source use, and they give you a phrase XDG, X-ray Delta Golf, and it stands for Cross Desktop Group. Now you'll see that terminology show up when you run this command. So let me show you what it looks like. It's echo, and then we're going to do a $, and this is going to point to an environment variable called XDG underscore. We're going to look for the current desktop. And this is case sensitive because we're working within Linux. I hit enter. It tells me that I am Xfce. Now there's another command that you can run to give you more information about the desktops that are currently installed. And this is going to be my environment pipe. And I'm going to grep tac I, and I'm looking for all of my desktops. What this does is it tells you that you're using free desktop display manager. This is called a display manager. The desktop session is using Xfce, and then you have a couple of other things like XDG session desktop, XDG current desktop. A couple of these are deprecated, and in fact when you run this command in other DEs it'll show up as being deprecated. But I did want you to see that you have the ability to always ascertain which desktop it is that you're currently using, even if you're not aware of its name. So let's go ahead and take a look at another desktop. I'm going to log out here, and by the way, the buttons will show up in a variety of places. So here under Xfce, I think it's super nicely organized. It uses tooltips, so when you point to an icon, the tooltip jumps up and tells you what it is that it does. I like that a lot. You of course have multiple windows capability in Debian. This is Debian version 12. Sometimes you have 4 windows with certain desktop environments. Some you only have 2. Like here Xfce is only showing 2 desktops. You have a down arrow here, and then one of the things that I really love, which is very similar to Windows, is it shows me what is currently open. So this toolbar right here, this taskbar, can be filled with icons of things that you currently have open. If I minimize it, it's alive here on the toolbar, so that's pretty cool. So I like that a lot. I'm going to log out of here, and I'm going to show you the next one. So I'm going to click my name here and go log out and select log out. Now they're not all alike, so you need to be aware of that not all of the DEs are alike. They're going to be a little bit different, which is why this experiment is super useful for you. Let's look at another. So let's take a look at Cinnamon. Now you'll notice that I've got Cinnamon and Cinnamon software rendering. What does that mean? Well, the top Cinnamon is going to make use of my graphics controller card, whereas the Cinnamon software rendering is going to use the CPU, the computer CPU, to do everything. And generally it's going to be a little bit slower because you're asking the CPU to do all of the work, especially if you haven't allocated that many CPU cores to your version of Debian here. So I'm going to select Cinnamon. Be aware that they both look alike. The only difference here is that we are doing software rendering when we're using the other one. In this case I'm using the hardware rendering version, and it takes a minute for it to come up. And here it is. Now you'll notice from Xfce I had all the icons on the desktop, so what it did was it just put a holding place there to show that I had these icons from another desktop. I don't know if they're clickable or not. Can I go click the trash can? Untrusted application launcher. I can mark it as trusted and potentially begin to use it. Let me mark it as trusted. Yep, it shows up. So if I double click this, mark as trusted. Double click this, mark as trusted. Double click this, mark as trusted. Okay, so that's Cinnamon. Now you notice here I've got a button here, and when I click this start button, It's very similar to the Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 11 Start button, and I like the layout a great deal. It's colorful, it's nice. They give you different icons to illustrate different things that are happening. So you can just go through here and you can see there's a lot of good stuff happening here, along with a search bar, all applications. This is pretty robust. I like this a lot. Here's my shut off. It looks like a little light switch. I want to log out. Here's my computer, and here's some of my other things. And here's what the taskbar looks like, or the terminal window. Now, one thing to notice here is that in Cinnamon, by default, the terminal window for some reason shows up as white with a black font, which I don't really care about. I'm fine with that. You should just be aware that the terminal window might look a little bit differently. Also, on the bottom, instead of on the top, which we had with Xfce, now some of the buttons show up on the bottom, and if I point to them long enough, do I get tooltips? I get some tooltips, like this is showing me I'm using English language. This is the clipboard manager, the network, and so forth. So that is what that looks like. That is Cinnamon, and it will look the same whether you're using hardware or software rendering. When you're using software rendering, all you're really doing is asking Linux to use the CPU to handle the rendering as opposed to a graphics adapter. To log out, you just click this button, click this guy right here, the guy walking out the door, and then this is a pretty common window you'll see in several of the DEs. I'm going to go ahead and log out, and we'll switch to the next one. Now the next one is called default xsession. So this is going to use an X11 window. X11 has been around a long time, and it's something that's well known, well established. Code is good. It's had a lot of rewrites, remakes, and so forth. You can see what it looks like. It looks very, very similar, not a lot, but somewhat similar to the mixture between Cinnamon and the Xfce. And so let me double click this, see if it prompts me with that. Yeah, nothing here. There we go. It did launch the network. So that's good. It launched it twice, as a matter of fact. But it just didn't put the icon there. And that's fine. You click Applications, and it looks very, very similar to Xfce from that standpoint. The icons are good. There's a lot going on here. It's easy to spot where things are at. The only problem that you might have would be getting to where the heck the terminal window's at. And it's under System Tools. It's going to always be under System Tools. Here's console, LX terminal, the Mate terminal, Q terminal. You got a bunch of terminals here. Zuddy, Xfce terminal. So you can launch different terminals, different task managers, different system monitors, because they have different looks and feels based upon the DE that you're utilizing. So this is what the default X window session looks like. On the bottom right here, you can see that you've got 4 windows to choose from as opposed to 2 when you were using Xfce. You've got a Places drop-down and a System drop-down. And System now is where you log out. Rather than clicking Applications, there's no log out there. All this little button on the bottom left does is it hides all anything open on the desktop. And so to log out using the X window system, you click that, and then you go to Log Out Bill, and this will show up a couple of different times based upon which DE you select as well. And it gives me a minute before it will log me out automatically. So let's try the next one. Now the next one is GNOME. GNOME is used over and over and over again. It's very popular. It's used in, for example, Ubuntu uses GNOME or GNOME. You can call it either way. I call it GNOME because my wife loves garden gnomes, but you can call it GNOME as well. Now this is the new look for GNOME. I'm not super crazy about this. What it's trying to do is let you know that you have a couple of windows that you could rely on to open things. And then it gives you this stuff down on the bottom here. So Firefox, Evolution is some sort of that might be an email program. LibreOffice, which is great, Files, Software, Help. If you click these 9 squares, that's where you can find the terminal. And that's one of the things that bugs me now about this thing. And of course I have a bunch of terminals that are available. So I'm just going to grab the GNOME terminal. I think that's a GNOME terminal, and that's what it looks like. And again, you can type in these commands. So you could say echo $xdg underscore current desktop. And then it tells you, oh, I'm using GNOME, and I'm going to ask for my environment here. Grep tac-i desktop. Let's see what it tells me. Now it gives me a little bit more information. Of course, free desktop. These guys are based in Germany. They are running the display manager. My session, this is deprecated. So what they're telling you here is that this environment variable right here is not going to be used much longer, so don't rely on it. And then the Mate desktop session ID has been deprecated as well, so don't rely on those. Now this is the guy you probably want to pay the most attention to. XDG current desktop is GNOME, and for the session that I'm currently running, it's also GNOME. But notice how it's proper case or lowercase. When you're spelling out GNOME, it should be proper case, but that's okay. Now you recognize the activities window. It shows up here, but instead of giving you a drop down with the apps that you want to use, it now does this thing where it splits the window. You can also right click these apps and you could pin it to what's called the dash. This right here is the dash, the dashboard. So I'll pin that there. And now it's just strictly a part of that. Now how do you log out of this crazy thing? Well, one of the things that you can do is you can click the off button right here. This is common. You'll see this in a lot of the desktops. And then you click the off button again and you select log out, and I will log out. Now I'll put up a couple of screenshots of what all of the different gnomes look like. There are 9 total. I'll put up 2 or 3 screenshots to show you what the differences look like. But I do want to show you what Wayland looks like. Now you got to keep in mind Wayland and X11 are display drawing protocols, and so X11 is older. It's going to be a little slower doing certain things, but Wayland is designed to do newer operations, which means it's relying on newer hardware. And if you're running this inside a VM that doesn't have a lot of horsepower associated with it, that might not be the best thing. So let's go take a look. Let's go look at GNOME Classic on Wayland and see what that looks like. Okay, and here it is. And on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, very similar to GNOME, you have the potential for 4 different workspaces. Tooltips is working great. It's very fast. Over here, all this button is going to do is minimize any active desktop, anything on the screen that's currently active. It will minimize that. So you know you're on Home Shopping Network or something and your boss walks by, you can click that and boom, it goes away. Applications maintains that drop down, which I like a great deal out of Xfce. And it's pretty colorful. It's also pretty cool about the way that it reacts. So you don't have to go to the right necessarily to see the contents. I was pretty intrigued with this. I don't know what the Kate programming environment is, so I'll do a little bit of research and put that up here so that you can understand what that is. That's pretty cool. And then you can see that you've got all these different tools at your leisure here. And then you have places. Now, how do I log out of this thing? Well, I come over here and click the shutdown button, and if you point to it, it'll automatically pop up. I click this button here, and I log out. And you've seen that before, so that's very similar. That's just usurping what GNOME is doing. It's acting like GNOME, but it just has a little bit tiny different flavor to it than with GNOME. Let's also go take a look at Metacity. I like this thing a lot. Before we do that, we should look at this on Xorg, and what they're talking about here is X11, which is older. It's kind of light and crispy and airy. It was invented back in the day when you didn't have a lot of CPU real estate, a lot of memory real estate, a lot of screen real estate. So it was designed to be a little bit more efficient. Again, you have the 4 workspaces. You have the minimize bar, you have the applications, the places, and the shutdown. So that looks very, very similar to GNOME on Wayland. Let's grab this Metacity. I really like this thing. It's very cool. There's a couple of them that have really had some attention paid to them, and they're actually pretty cool. You might wind up finding them to be a little bit slow. Now this is called GNOME Flashback. It's also called Meta City, and it's kind of weird. It doesn't have a whole lot going on here for itself. It gives you the GNOME Applications drop-down right here. The icons changed a little bit. You can notice that the flyout menus here are a little bit slower. So when I was working on, say, Wayland, I would just point to it and it would show me the contents. Here you have to wait for it to draw the flyout, which is okay. It's not a big problem. Here's Places. There's my desktop. And then here now I pick up this Xfce looking thing with my name and some of the other stuff going on. So there's a little tiny bit of blend here. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. So I will click this and I will go ahead and where is logout right there. And we've seen this window before. And finally, let's look at GNOME on Wayland. So I've got some more I want to look at, but I'm showing you all of the GNOMEs first. I am not the biggest fan of GNOME because, I guess it depends on the way it's laid out on the DE. Sometimes the icons are huge and they look kind of clunky. For example, Ubuntu does that, and I'm not the hugest fan of that. But you can see that this looks very, very similar to one that we looked at earlier. So this is GNOME on Wayland. Wayland's doing a little bit more extra processing, so it might take a little bit more time for us to launch something. So let's launch Maps, for example, and see what it takes. And there we go. So it's not too bad. And I can kill this right here like so. Kills pretty fast. And I can log out just like before. So this is a common logout button. Let's take a look at GNOME on Xorg. It's not going to be a whole lot different. The only thing you need to remember is that when you're picking Wayland, you're picking a different protocol. So these are rendering protocols that show up when you're trying to render the desktop. And Wayland is newer and X11 is a little bit older. But for all intents and purposes, they're going to look quite a bit alike. As demonstrated here, it looks very similar to when we were using GNOME on Wayland. It's just not going to perform quite as markedly well. And if I'm being honest with you, I think you're probably going to not see a lot of differences here as you're messing around within a VM. If you were running this in a production environment, yeah, maybe so. All right, let's look at a couple of other cool ones. So I'm going to log out here. Click this, log out. And I will log out. Let's look at LXDE. I really like this, and we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like. Okay, now this thing is actually kind of cool. It's sort of 3D looking. It's got a real 3D feel here with the, I don't know why I have two trash cans, but that's okay. So I like that a lot. You can see that I've only got the two windows here. Over on the right-hand side, I have some tooltips that are telling me what things do. And then here's your start button. So you have 3 or 4 buttons right here. Web browser, left click to iconify all windows, middle click to shade them. And then here's the start button, which is pretty cool. This is LXDE, and I like the way that this looks a lot. So it's the same sort of idea. What if you wanted to get to a terminal? Well, you can just go to System Tools and grab whichever terminal it is that you're interested in using, and you can launch that terminal, console or Xfce terminal or what have you. Now the logout is on the bottom right here, so if I click this little power down button here, this is a very, very different menu than all of the others, and I'm just going to go ahead and select logout right here, and it's an immediate logout. Let's take a look at LXQT here. There it is right there, and we'll type in. And why am I doing this? Well, because when you're out at distrowatch.org and you're looking for different distros that you want to try out and see if you like them, a lot of them offer you the ability to download them using multiple desktop environments. So I just wanted to know, well, what do these things look like? And why would I be interested in one over the other? On the right hand side, if I point to the C, do I get a tool click? Yep, caps lock is not on. Numlock, scroll lock is off. I'm using the US language. Bluetooth is disabled. I don't know what Parasolite means. I don't know if that's an editor or what that is. If I click it, oh, it's a clipboard. iBus panel and so forth. So that's pretty cool. Over here, I have the same thing as I had before. I've got my Featherpad. That's a text editor. This is my terminal, which I like a lot. Thank you for giving me a terminal right on the screen. And my files manager. And then my desktop 1. Are there other desktops? I guess there are. Show desktop, and then here's what this looks like. So this is quite a little bit different look. LXQT desktop, and again, if we run the terminal, you can run this same command. The echo $XTG, let me run that and see what I get. Terminals look a little bit different no matter where or which one you're using. I would recommend that one of the things that you do as you are evaluating all of these different desktops is that you take a look at what the terminal window looks like, because you may not like the way one terminal looks over another, and that might be something that's important to you. I like having things somewhat available on the desktop. I'm not a big fan of having everything on there. I don't care about having multiple windows, but you might. That might be a consideration. I'm going to log out of here, so I'll click this. This is a brand new little window. This is new to LXQT, and I will log out. Now this has nothing to do, you're probably focused in on this Qt part. Qt Python has a branding thing called Qt, and you can write code using Qt. You can write app code, but this is actually coming from the C++ Qt libraries. That's why it's called Qt here. I'm going to say yes, I want to log out. All right, let's look at Mate. So here's Mate. I had someone comment on one of my videos because I never knew how to pronounce it. And a gentleman wrote me, he was very polite, and he's like, look, it should be pronounced Mate, like M-A-H, Ma-T-A-Y, Mate. This is what it looks like. It's a little biggish for me, like the icons are a little large. Again, I have the 4 windows over here. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't really care about that. But I'm sure that there are people that like having that. It's getting extra screen real estate without having to buy a monitor, I think. Up on the top right, you're familiar with the layout here, what that looks like. Application shows up here, and it's a flyout menu. So it's actually pretty nice. The icons are fine. There's no problem here. Here's programming. There's Kate again. You go to places, and then system is where you log out. So this is what Mate looks like. Let's check out OpenBox. Oh, by the way, when you're selecting these different DEs, you'll notice that the icon, when you're using your VM here, your Oracle VirtualBox VM with Debian 12, the icon's going to show up differently based upon the DE that you've selected. So let's select OpenBox. I will type in. I know it's tedious, it's a lot of logging in and out, but it's actually really good to go through, figure out what these look like. You might think about, well, you know, if I was recommending one of these to my grandma and I wanted to get into Linux and start using Linux, which one would I recommend exactly? Okay, I think you're understanding where OpenBox gets its name. There's nothing there. The terminal is completely empty, nothing here, nothing to see here. How do you get into it? Well, you right-click the screen, and there you go. And you get your applications, Office, and so forth. So the reason it's called OpenBox, I think, is because it's completely open, and you have to know that if you want to work on something, you have to right-click, and you can right-click anywhere in the screen, so you don't have to right-click in the center here. And then how do I get out of here? Let me go Applications, Restart. Maybe it's Restart. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to pick Plasma. This is very interesting because Plasma is made by a German company called KDE, and I like this UI quite a bit. User interface is what it's called, graphical user interface. I like it a great deal. I think it looks really good. Now you notice here it says Plasma made by KDE. Takes a minute for it to launch, and here's what it looks like. And so it's putting a warning up here. I don't know if I double click these. It's not trusted. Click cancel. I'm going to click continue. Good, so that's working. It's just prompting me that it doesn't know what these are. It's going to take that out of there. It's fine by me. That's fine. These are not 3D. They look kind of blocky to me, if I'm being honest with you. But check out this menu here. This is really something. So there's a lot of things going on there. It's a very good looking menu here. And so I like this a lot. this is what is called Wayland. So plasma, this DE is called plasma. It's using the Wayland protocol for rendering the DE, and this was manufactured by a company in Germany called KDE, and I like it a great deal. It looks really good, and they have organized things pretty well. And so if I point to these, there are tooltips here. There's system settings, which I think is really cool. Again, I don't see the terminal here, so I might want to know if I could pin this to right here. But I do have the ability to shut down right here, and I actually wish Windows would do this. This is pretty cool. I like this a lot. So you don't have to right-click your way through shutting down. So that's what that looks like. It's very cool. It's easy to use. I will click shut down because that's how you do a logout. And then I'm going to select logout here. Let's take a look at this running in X11. This is our final one. I know the movie's running a little long, but I think it's fun to experiment with these things. Make up your mind, you know, and if you're out of DistroWatch and it offers cinnamon, maybe you pick cinnamon as opposed to, you know, picking, for example, plasma if it's not available or whatever. You get the idea. Now you notice here that X11 runs a little bit faster, and I get this thing here. This is not a thing because it is connected to a network. You can see that I'm connected to a network right here. So I'm not sure why that's telling me that. Again, if I double click one of these, I'll say I want to continue, means that I'm trusting it within this DE. Everything looks good. I get the same looking menu. Everything looks great there, and I can log out or shut down either way. Now you can do a lot of this from the command prompt itself, and this movie's gone way too long. I don't want to run through in another 20 minutes showing you how to use the command language to switch between these things. So what I will do is I'll paste the instructions below in the video notes when we're done here. And I did a little research on Kate, and it sounds like a pretty cool little language, a little IDE to me. It says that it can run over 300 languages, which is pretty cool. It'll work with Python, Java, C++, JavaScript, PHP, all the big E's, the go-tos, Rust, Go, and Swift. It can do HTML, CSS, markup, markdown languages. It can do Bash, and it even knows about some niche languages like Lua and Perl and Haskell. So I like that. Let's bring it up real quick and just take a quick look at it. So let's see if it's available. Development, and there's Kate. Let's see what it looks like. So this is what Kate looks like. I'm going to create a brand new file. I'm just playing around with it, so I don't know a thing about it. So I'll click a new file, and let's just type in print hello world. This would be a Python command, and then let's see. It looks to me like it thinks you're a Linux programmer, which means that you're going to write the code and then execute the code from the terminal prompt. This doesn't look to me like something that can actually run the code. It's more of a syntax highlighter, an auto-completion thing, code navigation type thing. So looks pretty versatile to me, and so it's something that you might think about. I like it a lot. If you click this Lisp button, it's going to show you diagnostics for your code. That's about all I really care about here. I just wanted to demonstrate to you that what Kate is highly thought of, and is something worth messing around with as you're experimenting. Now listen, I hope you've enjoyed this movie. I've been wanting to do this for a while because I've been really intrigued with desktop environments and how they work and how to load them up. If you've enjoyed this movie, please like this movie, share it with your friends. Please subscribe to my channel. You're welcome to drop a comment here. And thank you for listening. And I really do wish you a great, great day. Have a nice day. Be good.